All right, let's jump right into this. Today, we're unpacking a massive, ancient cosmic mystery that literally touches the very foundations of creation itself. We're talking about an epic biological war waged directly on the planet Earth. Seriously, this was a strategic conspiracy that fundamentally altered human history. And at the center of it all is the deeply reverent, almost unbelievable story of one man who somehow walked through absolute darkness to preserve humanity.
There were giants in the earth in those days. You've probably heard Genesis 6 quoted before, but we really need to look at the profoundly mysterious reality it's describing. This isn't just ancient poetry, folks. That phrase, sons of God, well, in the original Hebrew, that's Bene Elohim, and it specifically, consistently refers to angelic beings, not mortal men. We're looking at a literal, historical event where heavenly creatures abandoned their domain, descended to the planet Earth, and birthed the Nephilim giants. It completely sets the stage for the massive spiritual conspiracy we're diving into today.
So, how exactly did these beings get here? To figure that out, we have to look at the timeline of the ancient cosmos. It turns out there wasn't just one, but two distinct waves of angelic rebellion that absolutely shattered the peace of the heavens. First up, you have the gap, right between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2. This was a catastrophic judgment following Lucifer's original fall that left the earth without form and void. But then, fast forward to the pre-flood era, comes the second wave. A group known as the Watchers, led by Samjaza and Azazel, made a calculated, premeditated covenant on Mount Hermon to descend to the ancient flat earth. Two separate rebellions, leading to one unimaginable crisis.
Now here's the absolute crucial point. This descent, it wasn't just some random act of lust or a moral fable. No, this was the war of seeds. Think back to God's prophecy in Genesis 3, that the seed of the woman would crush the serpent. Well, Satan heard that and orchestrated a highly strategic, multi-generational conspiracy. His ultimate goal? A calculated biological assault on human DNA. I mean, if these fallen entities could thoroughly corrupt human genetics, then no pure human vessel would be left for the promised Messiah to be born through. We are talking about spiritual warfare of the absolute highest order.
To really grasp how deep this genetic war goes, we need to trace the very first stream of corruption. Interestingly, the New Testament uses a highly specific Greek word ek when describing Cain over in 1 John 3:12. Now, ek translates to out of, proceeding from, born of. The text actually says Cain was of that wicked one. It strongly suggests Cain carried supernatural serpentine genetics. This marks a biological and spiritual lineage that was completely separate from the pure Adamic line. Crazy, right? When you put it all together, it reveals two totally converging strategies Satan used to literally hunt the image of God to extinction. On one side, you have the Cainite line. This was a slow, patient corruption, spreading naturally through human reproduction over generations. But then, on the other side, you have the Watchers. This was a vastly accelerated, direct, supernatural corruption via angelic intervention that produced those massive giants. Basically, Satan was running a parallel program, a sort of pincer movement designed to completely overwhelm the pure human bloodline. And when these two streams finally collided, the results were devastating. The Hebrew phrase Benoth HaAdam translates to daughters of the man, which specifically refers to the pure Adamic line. But the Watchers and the Nephilim, they took wives of all they chose. They took Adamic women, sure, but they likely also took Cainite women who were already carrying that serpentine corruption. You can see how this compounding supernatural corruption created an absolute cascading biological catastrophe. Within just a few generations across the ancient planar realm, the pure human bloodline became vanishingly, dangerously rare.
Okay, let's shift gears for a second and look at the biological reality of the pre-flood planar Earth, because the environment these genetic hybrids were taking over, it operated under entirely different physical laws than the world we're sitting in today.
The scriptures actually describe waters above the firmament. We're talking about a majestic, pressurized water canopy completely suspended over the planar Earth. And the scientific brilliance of this lost design is absolutely staggering. Think about it. This canopy filtered out harmful cosmic radiation. It exponentially increased atmospheric pressure, which maximized oxygen absorption and protected cellular DNA. It even created a uniform worldwide greenhouse climate with zero violent weather systems. It was literally a highly specialized, perfectly engineered atmospheric shield. And it's what sustained human biology to the point where men naturally live for over 900 years.
Which brings us to a really fascinating number, 120. In Genesis 6:3, God declares that man's days shall be 120 years. Now, for centuries, people just read this simply as a countdown to the flood. But actually, scratch that. It's far more profound. 120 wasn't just a ticking clock. It was a biological prophecy. It was a terminal biological limit of the human lifespan once that protective canopy collapsed. God was quite literally declaring the biological outcome of the flood. And as you can see here, the devastating biological reset was immediate. Look at Noah, born before the flood. He lived to be 950 years old. But then look at Arphaxad, the very first generation born after the canopy collapsed. His lifespan immediately drops to 438 years. And by the time we get to Moses, the lifespan has bottomed out at exactly 120 years. This mathematical curve of human fragility perfectly illustrates what happened when the planar Earth lost its protective environmental shield and the atmosphere settled into its new, harsh equilibrium.
So, with genetic corruption at an absolute tipping point and this massive environmental reset looming, the Creator was filled with profound sorrow. Not a cold, detached anger, mind you, but a deep, grieving sorrow that His image in mankind was being systematically destroyed. But amidst all this global ruin, there's a miraculous preservation of one single, pure family line: Noah.
The scripture specifically calls Noah perfect in his generations. The Hebrew word used here is tamim. And what's super interesting is that it's the exact same word used later in the Bible to describe an unblemished sacrificial animal. It means complete, whole, without genetic defect. In a world completely overrun by the compounded supernatural corruption of the Watchers and the Cainite line, Noah was the ultimate biological survivor. His unblemished genetic purity is what maintained the possibility of the ultimate redemptive seed. But Noah wasn't just genetically pure, he maintained a staggering, almost incomprehensible intimacy with his Creator. The text says he walked with God. Just think about the sheer weight of that for a second. Noah lived 950 years. He maintained a century-long, daily, walking friendship with the Creator, all while living in a world utterly consumed by terrifying Nephilim giants and accelerating wickedness. He found grace simply because he kept looking for God when literally every single voice around him said God wasn't there. And because of that incredible friendship, God trusted him with arguably the most important construction project in human history. Now, we really have to contrast what modern minds think the ark was with its true biblical reality. It was absolutely not a navigable ship. It had no sail, no rudder, no steering wheel. The Hebrew word is teba, which literally means a chest or a box. It was a divinely engineered survival chest built for one sole purpose: pure biological preservation through an unprecedented hydrological catastrophe.
God didn't just give Noah a vague verbal warning, He gave him a complete divine blueprint. The architectural specifications are honestly mind-blowing. Use specific resinous gopher wood. Build it to precise 300 by 50 by 30 cubit dimensions. Why? Because that creates a 6-to-1 stability ratio that even modern naval architects recognize as perfectly stable in open water. 3 internal survival decks, sealed entirely inside and out with pitch. God was imparting divine, visionary engineering to a man who had likely never even seen rain, showing him exactly how to survive the catastrophic collapse of the planar Earth's atmospheric canopy.
So after 100 years of lonely, grueling faithfulness, building a massive survival chest for a flood he had never even seen, the animals are loaded, the family is inside, and we get this profoundly personal, physical verse: "And the Lord shut him in." Noah didn't close the door. God did. The Creator took that final act of physical protection personally. He sealed the Tebah himself to protect his friend from the violent reset of the planar Earth.
The enemy totally failed to destroy the messianic bloodline, but make no mistake, his target never changed. It is always the image of God in you. The tactics haven't changed, only the methods. The same enemy still seeks to corrupt, to blur boundaries, and to exploit our desires. So I have to ask you, how does the reality of this ancient spiritual warfare apply to your walk today? Will you, like Noah, maintain your walking fellowship with the Creator, even when you're completely surrounded by the giants of your own era? Keep learning, keep questioning, and whatever you do, keep seeking the truth.